Here comes Rob Williams, the national sports editor of the Daily Hive and its Offside Sports Vertical, and the president of the Carson Soucy fan club. More on that in a second, Rob, but it's our first opportunity to talk to you since all the trade activity and this transformation of the Vancouver Canucks from last Friday. Look, the second trade was absolutely done with an eye towards this year. I know they re-signed Pettersson here, but that was a trade made to keep the Canucks competitive in the playoff hunt. You think they're better off punting on this season? Did I see this correctly? Pray tell, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, this is consistent with what I've said. Like, for me, there's a time to trade first-round picks. And I know they acquired a first-round pick and then flipped it. But there's a time to be loading up with UFAs, rental players. You know, it makes it more palatable if you re-sign them. There's a time to be pushing your chips into the middle for win-now moves. And there's a time to kind of wait. And to me, the time you push your chips in is a time like last season. Everything's going great. Your team is playing really well. You can envision this team challenging for a Stanley Cup. 1 year later, I mean, this ain't it, right? Like this is not, the way they're going right now. I mean, I think it's very hard to envision the Canucks making a serious challenge for the Stanley Cup. I hope this gets clipped months from now, and we all have a laugh at this while the Canucks are charging in the Stanley Cup final. I would love nothing more. But if you look at the facts right now, Elias Pettersson hasn't been right in over a calendar year. Thatcher Demko, understandably after his injury, coming off a great game, but he hasn't been right this year. They don't have JT Miller anymore. Like, there's a lot more. You've got a lot more hoping and praying and wishing than you did a season ago when they were hitting on all cylinders. So to me, is this the time to be really, really making these win now moves? And I don't know.
You mentioned Pettersson. Here's what I will say.
Okay, go for it.
Mike, you put this in the recall file. The moment they eliminate Edmonton in Game 7 of Round 2, we're going to fire this one out, all right? Tag him, Rob the Hockey Guy on Twitter.
To be clear. Rob, what at the same time, what about the notion of, look how soft this division is, right? Like, the Flames haven't exactly pulled away from the Canucks. The Kings continue to kind of stumble along. I mean, there is an element of winning you're in. Anything could happen. Are you really not buying that idea?
I mean, it's going to be hard to get through Vegas. It's going to be hard to get through Edmonton. I'm not saying tear it down and purposely miss the playoffs.
Right.
I'm not saying that at all. I just thought when I saw that trade, when I saw the first round pick to get Marcus Pettersson, my initial reaction was like, that's a lot to get Marcus Pettersson, right? Like they spent a first round pick to get Philip Hronek. Like, that's like top pairing defenseman, under contract, younger, and now the cost is this. I know it's a weaker draft year. I know that does matter. It just, that to me, what I wondered was, I think it's like, look, the cost of a draft pick is never more valuable than right before the draft, right? Draft day, you're trading a pick. Everyone wants that because you get to pick it right away, right? If you're trading a draft pick before the trade deadline, that's when it's at its lowest value. So to me, I wonder, like, what could you have gotten with that Rangers pick if you traded it in June? I bet you could get more than what they got. So to me, hey, yeah, you've got to retool this defense. It wasn't good enough as currently constructed. But was the time to make that move right now, or was the time to make the move, in June? I think it probably was in June. Now, I'm not saying I don't dislike Marcus Pettersson as a player. Certainly I think he helps their defense right away, and he's going to help it next season as well. But would you have been better off next season focusing your attention on next year rather than trying to salvage what's left of this season? I think you probably would have been better off taking that lens and taking that approach.
Okay, so all fair. They've now re-signed Marcus Pettersson. So do the math now and tell me what you think of the contract.
Yeah, I don't mind it. And I think that certainly helps this deal, right? Like, I mean, if they don't re-sign Pettersson, they had to re-sign him. And look, it's a little long. 6 years for a soon to be 29-year-old defenseman. That's a few years, but it pays him till what? He's like 34. I don't necessarily hate that. I mean, hopefully he ages gracefully into his 30s. Not every player does, but it seems like a good fit in the room. Certainly, fits a need. Defensive-minded defenseman, somebody you can rely on. I think that ticks a lot of boxes. Now, I think you're going to ask me about him or Nikita Zadorov, and I do wonder, right? Like. I think a lot of fans are going to say, why didn't you do this for Zadorov? And I've got to learn a bit more about Marcus Pettersson. I got to admit, I haven't been paying attention to the, defensive-minded D-man on a non-playoff team. My question with him, looking at his resume, is, okay, he's been a top four defenseman, but he's only ever been a top four defenseman on a non-playoff team. So is he a top four defenseman on a cup contender? Maybe. I'm not here to say that he isn't, but I do think Zadorov, throughout his career, hadn't really ever proven that he was a bona fide top 4D, other than a great run for the Canucks in the playoffs last spring.
Where are you putting Pettersson in the lineup? Who's he playing with, you think? What's the best fit for him? Is he a guy you can put Hronek with? I mean, we saw who he played with in Pittsburgh. He played with some pretty high-end offensive defensemen. What's the best fit for him here, you think?
Yeah, I think it gives you options now, right? I think we've seen Myers has performed reasonably well with Hughes. That seemed to be like a no-go pairing before this season. It seems to be okay. We know Hughes and Hronek work together, so I think you've got options. I think probably Hughes and Hronek, that's been your super elite pair when they've both been healthy. That probably is the pair that you lean on and you play for 26, 27 minutes. And now you've got Myers, you've got the gunslinger Myers, and you've got the safety guy in Marcus Pettersson to play with him. That seems like the right kind of profile to play with Myers.
Gunslinger. He's gone from chaos draft to gunslinger. I love it.
I'm all in.
Okay, president of Carson Soucy fan club. And to be fair, I don't think Patrick and I disagree with you. I just don't think we're as vociferous as you are on Carson Soucy. But you think trading Soucy would be a bad idea, and you've got a comparison there, a recent history comparison there from which to draw on.
Well, guys, remember when the Canucks fixed their defense last year? They added Soucy, they added Cole, and they added Zadorov. Are they really going to just get rid of all three guys in less than a year after they it's like they fixed it and now they're kind of undoing it here? Would seem like a bit of an odd move. I think the thing for me is, look, the job of a general manager is to not just go, who's playing bad for me right now? Let's trade that guy. Because of course you do that. Like the player's values is low, right? So what are you going to get back for him? They did that with Andrei Kuzmenko. They could have traded him right after, his 39 goal season, but instead they wait till midseason when his value craters. They did that, and they didn't trade him. But the example I go back to is Ian Cole. It's like everyone was so high on the Canucks playoff run last year. Zadorov was this god in the city, and Ian Cole was just, who cares? He's terrible. And in the playoffs, that was correct. But for the rest of the season, Cole was the guy playing top 4 minutes. Cole was the guy with that leadership, the guy that was not afraid to drop the gloves to protect teammates, the guy with the Stanley Cup ring. Like, that was a guy that I think was really important in the Canucks room. And I think it was a regrettable decision to let him go. And they let him go. He went to Utah on a 1-year, $3.1 million deal. Seems like a bargain. They signed Vincent Desharnais to a 2-year, 2x2 contract, was that better? Certainly not, right? I think that you need to be careful about recency bias. And I think that's what's going on here with Carson Soucy. He's had a terrible year. It hasn't gone right for him start to finish. But 1 year ago, this guy was the perfect fit in Rick Tocchet's system. He's huge, 6'5", can play on the penalty kill. He was playing matchup minutes against McDavid in the playoffs alongside the gunslinger Myers. Right?
Yeah.
Now, was he a Norris level shutdown D? No, of course not. Right? He was a depth defenseman, a borderline second, third pair guy. And to me, it's like you've just quietened down everything around the market, and now to just tell the whole world essentially that Carson Soucy is available seems like a really weird move to me. And I know, okay, cap space, you can shed his contract, but like
they have tons of cap space. So what's the worry about?
Exactly.
You're not in cap hell right now.
No.
And having Carson Soucy settle into a third pairing role, I know they've got DPD. He's had a nice first few games. Pretty early to be making that call, in my opinion. And besides, if you're going to trade him, are you going to trade him at the absolute low point, or are you going to maybe give him a chance to bounce back and prove himself? Maybe he has a nice 2-week run in the playoffs and teams view him completely different. Who knows?
Yeah.
The thing that catches me, actually, and I think I am going to keep hammering on this point, is just that you can never have too many defensemen. And that's the thing that catches me. I don't quite understand why you're advertising
like
this.
Rob is so right. I mean, you're playing matchup minutes against McDavid in the playoffs, for God's sake.
That's such a good point, Rob.
No. Anyways, I want everybody to mark the date here, February 6th, because when Rob Williams forayed into media, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed from East Vancouver, he very much approached it like a Vancouver Canucks fan. He had Don Taylor chirping at him about his media credentials. And how many years ago was that, Rob? 10 years ago?
Oh, my God.
10 years later, he's shitting on their playoff chances. He's shitting on their trades. He's shitting on their extensions. He's shitting on their ideas to trade Carson Soucy. Welcome to House of Negativity Media, Rob. You have graduated. We will give you your cap and gown here on February 6th, 2025.
The toxic Vancouver media has gotten
exactly.
Rob, it's all your fault.
I think toxic Vancouver media, I think Rob Williams. Thank you, sir. All the best for the next week. We'll catch up soon.
Thank you.